This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Rashmi, you are audible.
Thank you. So a very warm welcome to all of you. So I'm Dr. Rashmi Patil, the director and the chief mentor for the RAISE Academy. Today I'll be taking a free session on labor ward prioritization, and before that there'll be introduction of all our course mentors and a brief testimonial regarding what the course has been providing for our students. So I welcome you all. To introduce our course mentors to begin with, this is me. I'm Dr. Rashmi Patil. I'm a consultant at Bengaluru, India, working in the corporate hospital as well as pursuing my passion of online teaching and helping you out in this MRCOG journey. And I am accompanied by Dr. Geetika here. Welcome, Dr. Geetika.
Yes, Rashmi, thank you so much.
Hi, Geetika. It was
Hello,
wonderful
everyone.
working with
Yeah,
you. Yeah. Can you please
yeah,
introduce
same
yourself
here,
to our
Rashmi.
students?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to you. Yeah, so I'm Dr. Geetika Arora. I'm residing in Delhi. I cleared my MBBS from JJMMC Davangere. So I was in Rashmi's college only, fortunately. After that, I cleared my MD from GMC Patiala, and I cleared my DNB after that. I did a fellowship in ART from Primus Hospital, Delhi, and minimal access surgery under Cuttack Medical College from Cuttack Medical College. I have cleared all my MRCOG parts in the very first go with a very nice percentage. And for the part 3, I was there with Rashmi. I took her course and it really benefited me a lot. It was
Thank you
of
so much.
great, yeah. So presently I'm working as an assistant professor in one of the medical colleges in Delhi, and I am mentor to MD, MS candidates. Academics has always been very close to my heart, and I love teaching students, and it's my passion. That's why I'm in a medical college, and I try to give personal attention to each and every candidate. Uh, so here in RAISE Academy, we all will work together and make your journey to clear this MRCOG smoother, and so that it just goes off in one go. And just remember, nothing is impossible. Believe you can, and you are halfway done. So this was from my side, Geetika Arora, and over to Rashmi now. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you so much, Geetika. It's been lovely to be in association with you and with RAISE Academy. And we are looking forward to so many, I think, decades of work together. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So, Dr. Siddesh, are you there?
Hi, I'm Dr. Siddesh here. Hi, Rashmi, I'm here.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Can you please introduce yourself to our students?
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Siddesh Iyer. I am currently working as a consultant. I have my own hospital in Mumbai, which is called Saukhyam Hospital and Shishu Bharati Center. And I'm attached as a DNB teacher to a municipal hospital, which is a teaching hospital. Um Talk about myself. I passed my MBBS from Grant Medical College, Mumbai. Also did my DGO from Grant Medical College, Mumbai. Then I did my DNB from a peripheral hospital which is attached to Nayan Hospital, Mumbai. And I cleared my MRCOG part 3 in the first go, although it took me an attempt at part 2. I cleared my part 3 in the first go in April 2018. So it's been like 2.5, 3 years since I cleared my part 3. I'm attached to various organizations like the Mumbai OBGY Society, and I am a member representative also for the West Zone of the AICCRCOG. And as Gitika also put it, teaching is my passion. I have DNB students, I have CPS students under me, and I love taking classes, I love taking lectures, and looking forward to good academic work with RAISE Academy. Thank you, Rashmi, for roping me in, and hope that all of you clear this exam as smoothly as we did it. and wish that we can impart as much knowledge as we have to you, and also get to learn from you guys also, so that we improve our practice. This exam is just a stepping stone for most people to better their careers, to have better prospects to go abroad, or just improve the practice that you do in your current day-to-day setting. It gives you so much insight as to how to talk to a patient. Like now, talking about part three, simple things like how to address a patient, how to talk to a patient, how to actually respond to the concerns of the patient, something that this exam taught me, and it helped me implement it in my practice a lot in ways that I can track. And believe me, practice has picked up much more than what it was when I wasn't an MRCOG. Not just for the tag of the MRCOG, but in general, what it does to you as a person, how you present yourself to your patient, and how the patient views you in what light. Be it any language, be it local language, be it regional language, not necessarily English, but then the words that you choose to use with your patients do make a difference in your entire life. So I wish you all the best, and I'm always there for you. If anything is needed, we are always available. Back to you, Rashmi.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been lovely to be in association with you and looking forward to again working together with you and Dr. Geetika. And yes, we'll be starting our session soon now for the next batch. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, we have introduced Dr. Rupali Bansal here. She's from UK. So she'll be helping us with the clinical governance and the NHS system. So for the part 1 and 2, she'll be taking classes regarding the same topics. And for the part 3 also, she'll be guiding us to how to deal with the clinical governance issues. So currently she's working in Leicester and NHS Trust in UK. So she'll be joining us soon in the course. So the upcoming batches, they'll be having the clinical governance with Dr. Rupali and me. So at present, she couldn't join us, but I'll be introducing her to you all. So yes, we are the mentors here and putting in our heart and all our efforts to make sure that you are getting the best thing possible. So we are working towards that, yes, and looking forward to teaching all the batches currently enrolled. And it was such an overwhelming response that you people showed me that I had to start actually 2 batches for July. So thank you so much for that. And the August batch I'll be introducing today. So looking forward to that. So congratulations, and we are proud of you. So this was the batch which has cleared in May 2021. So I had taken the extended course, then there was a rapid revision course for a month. There was a marathon course for 5 days continuously and discussing 20 sessions, 20 cases in each session. So we have here our proud Dr. Geetika Arora. She's mentoring with us. Dr. Nilufar Rajasaheb, Dr. Shilpa Kaushal, Dr. Nikita, Dr. Huda, Dr. Shruti, Dr. Anita, and Dr. Simi Agarwal. So this was a batch which could make out through this May 2021 exam. However, there were 7 to 8 candidates who just marginally missed it, and we are there with them till the time they are going to clear their MRCOG Part 3. So I'm not going to leave them. So it is like my support is always there with them, and all of us, we mentors, we are going to support them. Yes, coming to the testimonials, and we have Dr. Nilufar, then she'll be joining. Dr. Nilufar, are you there? Dr. Simi, are you there? Yes, I can see Dr.
I'm
Simi.
here.
Hi, Simi, how are you doing?
I'm good, ma'am.
Yes. So can you tell me like what you felt about the course, and just briefly whatever the honest opinion about the course and how it was for you?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. First, I would like to thank you for my success. See, to all the candidates, this is really a genuine review. It won't have been possible without Dr. Rashmi's support, because I have joined the marathon course in which she has discussed to us 100 cases over the 5 days. After part 2, we majority of us had a lot of theoretical knowledge, but in part 3, how to present the things that makes the and within that time frame, that really makes a difference. There are some key points. There are some key words that you have to use that Dr. Rashmi guided us, and that really helped me in clearing to the part 3. So I from the whole heart, I am thankful to Dr. Rashmi for the success of part 3 exam. So Please try her courses and you will really see the difference in your performance in exam.
Thank you so much, Simi. That was such a lovely thing. It's like I have trained you for those 5 days, but I believe that those exhaustive sessions, and you were like, okay, by the end of the session, I cannot read anything, but it's just the 20 cases that I need to assimilate, right?
Yes, exactly. That happens because we need to have some catch points that we don't know earlier that you have informed all those catch points in those sessions.
So you need to just go through them and revise again. Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Simi, so much. Thank you, dear.
My
Yes,
pleasure, ma'am.
thank you, dear. Dr. Nilofer, are you there?
Hi, Dr. Shmi.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, at last it's done.
Ah, now you can give your full time to younger one, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, now it's like relieved of the tension and all. Last 3 months back, the situation was different, and now the situation is like completely free.
Yes, I
I think
completely
the
agree.
voice is echoing. My voice is also echoing to you.
Yeah, just a minute. Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's very much clear now.
Okay, okay.
Yes, I can see some of the students are here who are giving their exam in November.
Hmm.
I would like to share my experience with Dr. Rashmi. I joined the long course with Dr. Rashmi and also rapid revision course, and at the end I took a mock exam with Dr. Rashmi. To tell you, before 3 months before the exam, my situation was completely different. Like I didn't know anything. I was completely blank because I had given my part 2 almost 4 years back, and then attempting an exam for the first time, I was really it was a difficult situation to me whether I should attempt the exam or not. It was Dr. Rashmi who told and built up confidence in me, saying that it is possible. Yes, why not? There is still long time to go, and 3 months is a big time. When I can do it with 7 months old baby, definitely you can do it. So that boosted me up, and I took that let me try. With full-time job, 8 hours, and 3 months old baby. It was very difficult, and I saw the question yesterday. I was like blank where to start and all. But then once it all comes step by step, the first boosted the confidence, and we went almost 6 months for the next game. And at the end, it was possible.
I think there's some voice problem. There, just a minute, it's not clear, they said.
Yeah,
Just a minute.
the voice is echoing, Dr.
Echoing, yeah. Just a minute. Now is it clear?
Yeah, now it's clear. No, again my voice is echoing, right?
Okay. There is some problem. Now is it clear?
Hello?
Yeah,
No,
now is it clear?
the voice is clear, but my voice is echoing back to me.
Oh, yeah, just a minute.
Shall I re-enter again?
No, there is some.
Only one device is open from my.
Yeah. Still there is some its echo is there. Yeah. Hello?
Hello?
No, I think
No,
still there is some problem. There is still some problem. Just give me a minute. I'll just rejoin.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, is my voice clear now?
Yeah, your voice is clear, Dr. Rashmi.
Huh. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There was some
My
problem
voice
with the
is
device
also
getting connected. Is it clear?
okay. Yeah,
Is
it's
it
fine.
clear to
Very much clear.
everyone? Okay, okay, dear. Yeah, yeah. Please continue. Yes.
Yeah, so my advice to students who are giving their exams in November would be, first of all, to be organized and more systematic. So whatever you read, let it be organized, go module wise. Like whenever you're taking any course, for me, Dr. Ashmi's course was very useful, and I did not join any other course at that point. So I went module wise. She used to take one module per week. So in that week, I made sure all the cases were covered, and she used to take 6 cases followed by homework task as well. So follow her timetable and work and finish off studying that module in that week itself. Don't keep postponing. So being organized and systematic and working hard towards that goal is very, very important. Second thing is put timetable, both short and long. So whatever you're going to do for a week and for 1 month. So that way, you'll be finishing because the syllabus is so much that whatever you study will not be sufficient. At the end, you'll be feeling, yes, this is less, this I have to study, this I have to study, this. No, you have to prioritize now because there is no more time left. And for each module, you will not have more than 1 week to study. So organize and study systematically. And whatever you study, make a note of it because revision is very important. Unless we revise, we cannot remember anything in the exam. So that is my suggestion to you is make a timetable, whatever you read, make a note of it and revise it before exam. So what I did was I followed Dr. Rashmi's timetable. She finished the long course 1 month before our exam. So I was almost ready for all the 14 modules 1 month before, and last 1 month for us was only for the revision. I also joined the rapid recall course which Dr. Rashmi had done last 1 month. So during that time, we used to do only recalls and prepare the templates as well. So during that 1 month, I almost revised everything which I did in last 2 months and did not read anything new. I only revised those things, revised and revised and revised. And on the day of exam, believe me, I took a mock exam 1 week before the exam, real exam. And Dr. Rashmi told after taking the mock exam that you have done well and definitely you will clear. That was the only words I remember from Dr. Rashmi, and that built up the confidence. We cannot read anything, everything and all, so many books, so many patient information leaflets, so many guidelines, that confidence which Dr. Rashmi gave me at the end, that really helped me a lot. And every time she used to call and ask how is the preparation going on and what I was lacking behind. So the voice and all she used to tell me. I used to correct it every time and made a better attempt next time. So the such feedbacks given by Dr. Ashmias are very important, and being systematic and ultimately, being confident and empathetic in the exam is also very important. Exam is very easy provided to take it in a better way, like without being stressed out, and that is possible only if you join a course which is perfect. And I still remember whatever Dr. Rashmi used to tell in the classes, I did not go and search back anywhere else. 100% used to be there in that. Whatever she used to teach in the class about one case, you need not go anywhere to read for it from anywhere else. That was the level of completeness I found in Dr. Rashmi's teachings. So that was my feedback here.
Thank you so much. And you were one among the candidates who were so dedicated and completing the task on time. and it was like May 10th means May 10th, and that's it. And I still remember everything was like set in, and the folders with the photo you had shared, I just loved them, and I got so many things. What, madam, what was there inside those folders? I was like, I just don't know whatever templates we had done. She made a note of that, and she
Yeah,
made sure that we
yeah.
were to revise everything. So I got so many messages like, I want to know what is there in the folders. Okay. Yes, your hard work was there, Dr. Nilofer,
Yeah.
and you
Thank
have
you so much,
completely
Dr.
dedicated
Rashmi.
yourself. So it was not a long period that you had to contribute. So lots of
Yeah.
things you had to cover, which you did, and everything, the hard work and the smart work, everything paid off. So that was really good. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh, Dr. Nikita, yeah, are you there? Hello. Yeah, Dr. Nikita, are you free? Sorry, I'm disturbing you in your hospital hours.
No, not at all.
Yes. Can you share us like what experiences and what feedback do you want to share with the course?
Oh, yeah, sure. I completely agree with what Dr. Nilofer said. I actually joined Dr. Rashmi, I think just about 6 weeks before my exam.
Yes,
And
yes,
until
yes.
then, I was really held up. I was really held up with my own stuff. And then I got the booking, and then it was like, yeah, do it now or never type. So then I joined Dr. Rashmi, and I really got this personal attention. She used to call daily, she used to ask, and then she used to go through the recording and point out where we are going wrong. There were several times she calls me and said, "No, Nikita, this patient communication you'll have to improve." And then she gave me tasks which were based mainly on that. So she made me perfect with what I was lacking. And I also happened to do her marathon course, and it was really wonderful, friends, because Dr. Rashmi covered almost about 100 recall questions. So I did not have to go through the recalls at all. 5 days I attended her class with a full concentration, and she went on like a, I would say, like a robot. It just went on and on.
Oh,
It was so good. And it
yes.
needs a lot of effort to talk for so long, and I really appreciate that. And many stations which I could not cover, or which I could not get the templates, or which I could not prepare my own templates due to lack of time, which most of us feel with face with our busy schedule. Just listening to her helped a lot. So some stations, like say Charcot-Marie Tooth syndrome or something like that, which just pops up from nowhere, and it's always nice that you at least heard. And this happens like just before the exam, so your memory is going to be fresh. And if you concentrate in the full 5 days of her marathon class, it was, I think, a wonderful experience. And the way she used to give feedback, even in her in the sessions, it was really good. So I was really lucky to attend that marathon course. And thank you, Dr. Rashmi.
Thank you so much, dear. You have really put in a lot of efforts. I must say that. And the last station, I think we were discussing towards the child sexual abuse, and you said like you have to be on toes with this, and you got that in your exam. So I was really happy that day that we could make it out with that. Thank you so much, dear. Thank you all for the lovely testimonials, and I feel so blessed that for your success, I could contribute my share to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And also, she used to say this in your exam: don't feel scared, feel that you're doing the station with me. So
Yes.
literally in all my 14 sessions, I was thinking, yes, I'm doing the station with Dr. Rashmi, and I was just going on and on. So
Seriously,
that
yeah.
also gave me a lot of motivation, and made us calm, and like, okay, it's another station, 14 stations with Dr. Rashmi.
Hmm. One by one. Yes. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much for taking time from your busy hospital schedule at this moment. Thank you, dear. Yeah. Thank you for joining in, all of you.
All the best, friends. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much for all the lovely feedback. So today I'll be discussing the labor module. So I want to brief you about what the template that I usually follow in a labor module as such. So initially we have to introduce ourselves to the, if it is a structured discussion, we are introducing as a structured discussion candidate. Otherwise we are introducing to the role player. The introduction is very important. The patient could be in pain or they could have some contractions, a post-delivery and emergency patient. So how we are going to deal with that, I'll be telling. So always remember where the patient is. Is she in labor room? Is she in some recovery, or is she in an HDU, or where exactly the patient is and where that situation is happening? Because you need to shift the mother, you need to resuscitate her. So all these situation awareness is really yeah. Can you all hear me? Okay. So is she on the labor table and is she about to deliver? So the situation awareness is really important. Next is about, is my voice clear? Is there any
Yes, it is.
echoing or? Yes.
No, it's clear.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, dear. So next will be the history of presenting complaints, as in where the patient is and at particular point, like what complaints is she having, or she is in the early part of the labor, she's having pain, she needs some pain relief. How are the contractions? How is she feeling? Or she's about to deliver, or she has delivered and then immediately she needs some attention and care. So this HOPI about the current situation that she's undergoing, that you need to see, and a recovery after the delivery, that is really important. You need to quickly go through the antenatal history in such scenarios, and most of the times the records, everything will be already conveyed to you. If not, you need to access the notes and just say access the notes with your permission, because this is really important. Anytime, obviously, when the patient is admitted, all the notes, everything are there. But for the fact that you can just say that, with her permission, it will make her feel safe that, without my the permission, nothing is going to happen and everything is going to be according to my will. So whenever the patient you're communicating, I will be telling that, I'll be going through your notes. So I'll be going through your notes with your permission. So it just make it a habit that way, be it any station. Then ask about the current problems, what she has, or the current concerns that what she has. For example, she must be in second stage of labor for a long time. And if she is primary, then more than 3 hours has relapsed. If it is multi, more than 2 hours have relapsed. But the patient has not yet delivered. And now you have the concerns whether to go in for an instrumental delivery versus cesarean. In that situation, you have to ask her, like, what is her preference or what are the concerns. Yeah. And after that, then you have to put forward your findings and your notes over there. So whatever the things that you're going to discuss with her, whatever she has her own beliefs, you need to appreciate that first, and then put forward what are the pros and cons of that particular situation and discuss the other mode. So make sure whatever her current problems, her concerns are there, those things you're addressing first, and then you're discussing the other options. Information gathering, I always tell my students that they have to practice within 2 to 2.5 minutes. So all of them have got the templates and they're doing their homeworks and they're submitting their tasks, the voice tasks, wherein within 2 to 2.5 minutes they're practicing this. Why is this important? Because in the online exam, the slides or the station ends and the next the task, it just appears. You do not have any seconds left even to tell an extra point, because everything, it just vanishes and the next task is there. So in order to make sure that you're completing your task within targeting, like 9 minutes, because more than that, probably a half a minute here and there you may lose. So target your station within 9 minutes. If you are taking that information gathering for 4 to 4.5 minutes, you do not have the core management plan which you have to discuss with her, right? So what you have to do is quickly finish the information gathering with her within that time frame of 2 to 2.5 minutes. For the fact that the remaining time, you are going to make the best use to tell her all the evidence-based management plans. that should be there. Be it any station, make sure your information gathering is getting completed between 2 to 2.5 minutes, and the fluency will come only when you're practicing at least 5 times a day. So I ask them to practice, like, the same thing again and again, so it sits at your spinal level. Even if somebody wakes you up in the night and asks you to tell all the information gathering template, so immediately you need to utter all of them. So that should be that madness with which you are preparing for your part 3, right? You have to formulate a particular care plan for her, be it in the second stage or be it in the early labor, and how it is going to go. Explain the mother that what you're going to do, and you involve her in the care plan. You have to tell her this sentence: you will be involved in the care plan. She'll feel very happy that yes, my thoughts, my decisions, everything are going to be respected. So involve her in her own care plan. The next few stations, there are negotiation stations which were there in every particular day of exam in May 2021. So you had to negotiate, or you had to convey something like, there could be some breaking bad news as an IUFT station, or you need to take a postmortem consent and discuss about the further care. So negotiation stations are really important, especially when she comes for the decision making. She wants a home birth, she wants a vaginal birth. Home birth can be a cesarean section, home birth could be a twins, home birth could be a breech. Then she wants the vaginal birth for the breech. She wants a VBAC, but again, she's thinking like pros and cons, whether to be in the hospital or go by the delivery at home. So these kind of negotiation stations are there where your lay examiner is sitting. And it's very important that the way you convey to the role player, it's going to matter a lot, because the lay examiner is also going to judge you and give you marks. So in that particular station, you'll have 3 of them who will be judging you and giving you the marks. So those stations are really important where your negotiation stations are there. The fact that you have to appreciate what her thoughts are, and that she wants a home birth, so you're going to appreciate. So I've done this in one of my free sessions. So you can just go through the recording also. Appreciate what she has decided for herself. Tell all the positive points. After that, you tell her that you have few concerns and can I discuss with you. Then tell her all the negative points about what she has thought for herself. Then tell her what the evidence suggests and how to go ahead with that. Excuse me. So once all these things are done, give her time to decide. Do not say like, what are your thoughts or something like that. You just tell her, okay, I'll give you some time. So you can go back and do not prolong it much, because they must have come for discussion almost at 36 weeks, because that is the thing when mode of delivery, everything is going to be decided. So give her some time, probably within that week frame. Let her decide with the friends and family and other people. She can just talk and take a decision for herself. And in spite of that, whatever she's going to decide, you're going to respect that. You're going to document and respect her decision. And then you have to involve all your consultant and the senior people into this discussion in the next visit. So the negotiation stations are really important. Speaking about consent, this is one of the patient safety points where you should never forget upon. So why is this? Bindu, was this session being recorded here?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Speaking about the consent, the written consents, these are really important, because whenever the patient is going inside the operation theater, you should make sure that she has everything in place. The written consents and her signatures, everything is explained to her. Can you just mute your mics here? Okay. And the written consent, yes, before the patient goes inside the operation theater, you have to make sure that these things are there. Any instrumentation which can be done in the labor room, verbal consent is enough. And any consent that has to be taken in the operation theatre, the patient is going inside operation theatre, you have to make sure that a written consent is there. Whenever the patient enters the operation theatre, the important things are the WHO surgical safety checklist. These points have to be uttered. So you are going to follow the WHO surgical safety checklist, and then you're going to do the procedures, whichever are there. Explaining about crash trolley whenever it is required. For example, you're going to use your lignocaine, then inadvertent, injection into the vessels that can cause problems. So a crash trolley, a resuscitation trolley, this should be there. So make sure these are available, and these points are very important, especially when you're dealing with a structured discussion. The medicines which you're going to use for her, which you're not going to use for her. For example, she is a Rh negative patient. You're not going to use a methogen for her. This is a patient safety point. If the patient is having asthma, you're not going to use the carboprost for her. You're going to avoid the NSAID group for her. So these words should come out in your mouth whenever you're discussing the labor module, because these medicines which can be given, which cannot be given, these are more important, right? So you should make sure, are there any contraindications for this particular medications that has to be given to this patient? Are there any contraindications for any instrumentation? This patient is above 0. You're not going to do any instrumentation for her. In that condition, it is just the theater. So are there any contraindications for the vaginal delivery for this patient? Then you have to discuss these things with her. So any station, think about all the contraindications that you need to discuss. Involving your senior, this is a very important safety point. At any station, at any given point of time, if you feel that the decision making is difficult, the role play is not, convinced by your decision or something, or the station is such that, there is a emergency which is happening, and you may or may not be trained to perform that thing. For example, it could be some bleeding placenta previa, it could be some rupture uterus. So if you do not say that I'm not going to involve senior and I'm going to do all these things alone, then you're compromising on the patient's safety. At any given point of time, make it a habit that you are going to involve your senior, okay? The presence of a senior consultant, the presence of a senior anesthetist, the hematologist, the specialist nurse, the scrub nurse over there, and later on she'll require a counselor, where you're going to, place this patient later on. Once the theater thing has been performed, whether she'll require a post-op care in the routine care or the HDU or the ICU, that has to be decided, okay? So involve all these multidisciplinary team of members and make sure any fluid management stations or points are there. You have to involve the anesthetist. So they'll be helping you out with the fluid management. Okay. Remaining things are involving your senior, the intensivist, then the specialist nurse who are going to take care. So these people have to be there. OT staff, they are very important. So you need to inform them whenever the patient is in labor and she has to be shifted to the operation theater. You should make sure the labor ward coordinator, she's coordinating with the operation theater staff also. So make sure these things are covered. Speaking about clinical governance, very important points. NHS is very, focusing upon all the clinical importance, like clinical governance points. So any station, I tell my candidates, whenever the management comes, always think it as a clinical management, the clinical governance. So your last 1 minute will be, you're speaking only about the clinical governance points, okay? What are these? Yes, it will be a duty of candor whenever it is required. You need to be open and honest about the things when you're explaining to her. It could be debriefing the situation for the mother, for the relatives, for your team. So a debriefing could be there. Documentation, this is really important because each and every event, it could be in seconds, it could be in minutes. Everything has to be documented. It could be a PPH where minutes are really important to save the life, what medication is given at what minutes, and when did the fluid start, especially all these things have to be documented. So documentation, there will be a scribe who will be sitting and observing all these things, and they are not actively involved in all the management, but they are just writing down that what things are being done. So documentation is really important. Next one, again, asking about all the any particular reason that incident report has to be raised. So a DATX, so that becomes important. Assessing the patient for DBT prophylaxis. So DBT prophylaxis, you should never forget in any station. So make sure at the end of it, you're just thinking about all the Ds that is possible. What are the other Ds? Again, discussion. So discussion about this case. So case-based discussion can be done later. You can think and see what things could be done differently so that this event wouldn't have happened. So you can discuss about all these things with your colleagues and other things. Then, yeah. So once, yes, so once all this patient has been settled down and then she is ready to go home, the discharge summary, that is your 7th D. So remember all these 7 Ds which you have to discuss with any station that is provided to you. After this, just think about other clinical governance points like, does this patient, have I dealt with this patient? So this could be reflecting back in my practice. So that is a reflective practice. So if I have done, maybe I could have done these things differently, then probably I could have given an episiotomy cut a little at a 60-degree angle. So I gave it at 45 and she ended up having a tear. So this is all reflecting back on our own practice. So this point is important. Think in situation where audit can be conducted. For example, a postpartum hemorrhage, a PPH. So if it is a structured discussion, make sure that yeah. So make sure that these points are being covered. So in any situation where an audit can be conducted, so you can do that thing. Then you should think about all the risk management team if they are going to be involved in this particular case. So you need to speak about that also. So make sure you are discussing all these clinical governance points, and your station will never end if you do not discuss these points. Okay, so the ending of your station should be with the clinical governance. So make sure you're doing this in each and every task. All these points should be running in the back of your mind. Can I apply this? Can I apply this to station? No. Next point. Can I apply this? No. Next point. Yes, I can apply this for her. So make sure all these points are there. So this will come only with the practice years. So make sure you're practicing all these clinical governance points. Follow-up is very important. Now the patient had some DVT, then you put her on the medications, you're arranging for a follow-up. The patient had a postpartum hemorrhage, and then you're arranging for a follow-up. It could be some sepsis, then it could be some shoulder dystocia. You want to know how the baby is doing. So any any particular station, the follow-up is really important. Okay. Support groups, telling the mother about all the support groups that she could need. So it could be related, if you can remember, you can tell the name of the support groups. If not, at least tell, I'll be guiding you towards the support groups, and speaking with the people with a similar experience can make you feel better. So you can just share with her. Once the labor particular thing is done, what are the immediate next points that has to be covered? It should be the breastfeeding, it should be the contraception, and it should be the pre-pregnancy counseling. So these are the stepwise how we are going to approach in a particular station. So let her be in her early pregnancy or mid somewhere between 28, 36 weeks something, or let her be in her labor. Just take her throughout the journey of the pregnancy, the delivery, everything. After delivery, what care has to be given, and then yeah, excuse me for the bad throat. So after that, how these things have to be taken forward. So it should be the breastfeeding, the contraception advice, the pre-pregnancy counseling next time. Give her the information leaflets about what the events have occurred. So if it is relevant in that particular task, you're giving the leaflets regarding that particular points. Give her the next appointment, a scheduled appointment, and preferably with a consultant. So you can just discuss all these things again with her. Okay. So this is how the labor, the delivery, the labor, and anything related to like the immediate postpartum things, how these stations are revolving around. So in labor, make sure how she's progressing, the CTG changes. You are dealing with the two people there, so the mother and the baby. So you need to discuss about both of them, and the delivery, the post-delivery care. So make sure you're completing your station like this, and always comment about the clinical governance points. Okay. Okay, so today I was supposed to take the labor ward, the labor module for my long batch course people. So I have requested one of the candidates to present the labor ward prioritization for all of you. Dr. Tina, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, dear. How are you doing?
I'm fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Fine. Must be a busy week for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, dear. So, thank you so much for accepting to present in the free forum for all of us and taking the active participation. I really appreciate that, Dr. Tina.
It's an honor, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So, we'll begin with the labor ward prioritization station. I'll be giving you, once you're able to see this, let me know. I'll start your 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I can see.
There are a few more slides.
Yes, ma'am. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Previous slide, ma'am.
Okay. We'll start your station now.
I'm the ST5 taking handover at 8 a.m. with my efficient team and keeping patient safety as my utmost priority, aiming towards a healthy mother and a healthy baby outcome. I hereby begin my labor ward prioritization. I'll
Okay, doctor. So
prioritize patients.
These are your 8 rooms. So you can begin your prioritization now.
I'll prioritize patients as urgent, semi-urgent, and non-urgent. My first priority room is room 8, Benny, who is an urgent case. I will press the emergency buzzer for this. She's a 38-weeker trial of labor after cesarean, and her clinical features of sudden pain, recent onset hematuria, and CTG abnormalities would make me suspect a uterine scar rupture. I'll personally examine the patient, her clinical condition, alert or not, vitals, tachycardia, hypotension or not, do a per abdomen, per vaginal exam, quickly check the notes for relevant risk factors, drug allergies, blood group and type, comorbidities, inform the patient and her companion the condition, and consent her for an emergency category 1 cesarean section and blood transfusion consent. A midwife will be asked to urgently secure a 14-gauge IV cannula and send blood for full blood count, group and safe, coagulation parameters, cross-match, 2 units pack cells, red blood cells, and FFPs, start IV fluids and ringer lactate, and give IV pre-medication. Another midwife will start a mask oxygen at 5 liters per minute, catheterize the patient with a Foley's catheter, and get the patient ready to be shifted to the OT. I will call my consultant who is in the gynae theatre and inform that this patient is a possible uterine rupture case, convey my clinical findings to my consultant and tell that she would require an urgent category 1 cesarean. I will ask my consultant if she has finished her gynae case or will be able to while the patient is being prepped for surgery and take over. If my consultant is not able to, I will personally perform the category 1 cesarean section. The labor ward coordinator will alert the neonatal ICU anesthesia team and the OT staff to prepare the theatre for an emergency category 1 cesarean and blood bank urgently to cross-match blood products. I will ask the anesthesia registrar to do the pre-anesthesia check. The next room is room 6, SERA, the term primary, rhesus negative blood group, and CTG with 2 non-reassuring features. It is an urgent priority room. If I'm held up with the emergency category 1 cesarean from room 8, then my ST3 will see her. Will check the notes for risk factors, allergies of the patient. A midwife will secure the IV cannula, which is a 14 gauge IV. Arrange group and save, cross-match 2 units PRBC, send full blood count, PT-INR. The patient will be kept on continuous CTG monitoring, and her abdomen will be examined for contractions to rule out hyperstimulation. If present, the patient will be given injection terbutaline 0.25 milligrams subcutaneous. Supportive measures will be started like stopping oxytocin, starting IV fluids like ringer lactate, shifting patient to lateral decubitus. PV will be done to check for cervical effacement, dilatation, and station of the head. Acute events like abruption and cord prolapse will be ruled out. ARM may be done to rule out meconium stain LICA. If she is fully dilated and the station is low, vaginal delivery will be expedited. The patient and a birth companion will be informed her condition. If the CTG is abnormal, after all conservative measures, digital fetal scalp stimulation will be done. Fetal blood sampling will be done. If the FBS is also abnormal and the cervix is unfavorable, cesarean section will be considered. Ergometrine will be avoided postpartum as she is O negative. After the delivery of the patient's, the patient's blood group will be confirmed and anti-D will be given within 72 hours of delivery if the baby is rhesus positive. Then will be room 5, which is semi-urgent. The midwife will check on the patient who is a postdated primary, who is fully dilated with grade 1 meconium and should have delivered by now. The vitals will be checked, per abdomen, per vaginal findings will be rechecked. Patient's notes regarding her risk factors will be examined. Continuous CTG monitoring will be done. Station of the head and contractions will be checked. If the contractions are inadequate, CTG trace is normal, then oxytocin will be started and titrated. If the CTG is abnormal, a fetal blood sampling is done and the decision for mode of delivery will be taken. Blood cross-match, full blood count, group and save, PT-INR and IV cannula will be confirmed to be in place. If CTG is reassuring, then 1 hour later, clinical condition, contractions and PV will be done. Decision regarding instrumental delivery or cesarean, depending upon the findings, will be taken. The ST3 will explain to the patient and her companion her clinical condition, delay in progress, and consent for instrumental delivery or cesarean as required. Then I would like to now go by room. The next room is room 1, which is a semi-urgent case. It's a post-LSES insulin-dependent diabetic patient with significant blood loss in drop. Here I will ask the anesthetic registrar to see the patient, check her vitals. The Muse chart will be checked, intake output, clinical condition, whether the uterus is well contracted or not, surgical dressing, whether it is dry, bleed per PV is normal or not, adequacy of urine output, whether pain relief is adequate. Also confirm the medication on the file. The fluid balance advice will be given to the nurse and the post-op HB will be checked. Enhanced recovery will be aided by early oral intake if the patient is stable, and early ambulation will be done. The condition of the baby at NICU, reason for NICU admission, baby's blood sugars, feeds, and general condition will also be inquired. Then room 2, who is a rhesus negative postdated asthmatic who has been referred from home delivery for slow progress. The ST1 will examine her, obtain relevant history, obstetric medical, family history, drug allergies, blood group, risk factors. The midwife will check the vitals, send blood for group and save, full blood count, antenatal baseline investigations and serology if not already done. The ST1 will do a per abdomen PV exam. Labor management will be based on Bishop score and contractions. Induction will be done if Bishop score is less than 6. It can be done with prostaglandin E2 if the membranes are intact. If the patient has leak per vaginum, then misoprostol may be used, but the patient should be informed that it is not licensed for use in UK, and if she is willing, it can be used. Oxytocin augmentation will be done. As she is asthmatic, drugs like ergometrine, PGF2 alpha are to be avoided, NSAIDs to be avoided. CTG monitoring, close monitoring of vitals, partogram charting to be done. Patient and birth companion are told the management plans and concerns addressed. Then room 3, it's a non-urgent case. She's a post-dated patient with intrauterine fetal demise. An apology will be made by the labor ward coordinator regarding the delay to meet her as the labor ward is busy. But if the patient insists on seeing a doctor, the ST1 will speak to her as soon as possible. Breaking bad news will be done gently, and the management plan will be explained. The need to send the fetus for post-mortem will be explained. A multidisciplinary team meet will be arranged with the consultant gynecologist, counselor, geneticist as an appointment. Patient information leaflets, 24/7 hospital contact numbers, support group details will be given. If the patient wishes for admission, per abdomen, per vaginal exam will be done. Blood will be sent for full blood count, group and save, cross match, coagulation parameters, LFT, RFT, and random blood sugar. Induction of labor will be done based on PB findings. Room 4, semi-urgent case, will be seen by ST1. She is a preterm primary Rh negative status with antepartum hemorrhage. As the CTG is normal, close monitoring of vitals and clinical condition and continuous CTG monitoring will be done. The midwife will be asked to send a full blood count, group and save, ICT, coagulation parameters and Klein-Hobb-Etke test, and arrange 2 units of PRBC. 14-gauge IV cannula will be inserted. Urgent history taken, whether painless bleed or not. Hospital notes will be checked for the location of placenta, history of preeclampsia and gestational hypertension, history of drug allergies, recreational substance use, especially cocaine. Vitals, clinical condition and per abdomen will be checked. Uterus, whether relaxed or tense to rule out abruption. Uterus, whether appropriate for gestational age. A bedside ultrasound will be done to confirm the placental location, to rule out abruption, to look for baby's growth, estimated fetal weight and Doppler. Local exam will be done to quantify the amount of bleed. Patient is given antenatal steroids like injection betamethasone as per course and repeated after 24 hours. Injection anti-D will be given as per the Klein-Hobb-Etke test. If mild contractions and abruption is ruled out, tocolysis will be started. The NICU will be informed regarding the preterm gestation patient with antepartum hemorrhage. The last room is room 7, which is a non-urgent patient, a multiparous lady, postnatal since 1 hour, who's stable. She'll be seen by the midwife. Vitals will be checked, whether uterus is well contracted, bleed is within normal limits, episiotomy is healthy or not, urine voided or not. The baby will be checked whether it's with the mother or in the nursery, whether the baby is breastfeeding and well. All the patients' documentation will be done and records will be seen to be filled. This is my prioritization.
Okay, so can you, in the final thing, can you just say about the last room-wise, how you're going to prioritize, which are your urgent ones?
My urgent ones will be room 8, the previous cesarean trial of labor scar rupture. Then room 6, the IUGR induction who has a bad CTG. Then room 5, which is semi-urgent, the grade 1 meconium stain Leica who's fully dilated and not delivered. Then semi-urgent, the post-LSCS patient who have had a blood loss. Then the other one will be the rhesus negative asthmatic referred from home for delivery. Then the non-urgent, because I've gone by room. Then the semi-urgent one, which is the Rh negative primary with APH. And then the 2 non-urgent ones. The first one will be the intrauterine fetal demise, and the last one will be the multiparous postnatal mother.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Tina. So we have few friends here who were just telling, they've been writing in the chat box, so you know that the flawless presentation is there. These are nothing but these are the repeat stations which is there in the RCOG course, which is, I think most of the groups, everything they have shared these, right? The templates which are there. So I've taken the case from there itself. So this is just the repeat station, and you just have to, you know, practice all those stations so that you get that the kind of flow, and you have to be perfect in at least all those practice stations that has been uploaded in many of the files that they are there in the drive, right? So that is there. Dr. Tina, performance-wise, you have completed your station. Priorities you have told. There are few points which you have missed, especially like, you know, confirming the Jehovah's Witness and shifting the patient where exactly, and these points have to be covered. And in the stations where the patient has delivered, you should know about the, you should comment about the baby also. like where the baby exactly is, and how is the care, or what happens later on, the neonatologist and the sugar monitoring for the baby for this IDDM. So I'll be telling you all those points, how it should go. And everywhere you should make sure you're communicating in terms of like the SVAR situation. Okay, so whenever you're
Okay, ma'am.
starting and you're opening up your statement, like I have told you people in the class, I have given you the recording that, you know, whenever you're starting with your introduction, you should introduce yourself, and you should say that I'm taking handover at this particular point of time, and I'll be discussing all these things, and I'll be prioritizing them based upon the urgency, semi-urgent, or it is a routine kind of the room that is there. And you have to tell that I'll be doing this, keeping the patient safety in mind and aiming for a healthy mother and healthy baby outcome. So this will be a kind of short sentence that you'll be using for any labor room prioritization station. Okay, so once you say this, the examiner knows that you are going to keep the patient safety in mind first. You are targeting for a healthy outcome for both the mother and the baby, so the morbidity is going to decrease. So the first thing is you have to introduce yourself that I am an SC5, okay, in the labor room ward today, and I'll be taking at this particular time the handover. This has to be mentioned, and then with the team of doctors who are there, you are either it could be like an immediate where you need that attention, or simply you can say this as an urgent, semi-urgent as a routine, and you should always use the communication as a kind of an SPAR situation. Okay, so you're dealing with that situation, the background thing you're discussing with your consultant or the examiner over there, assessment, and then what are your recommendations. So always go by this here. Now there are options whether you are going to go room wise and then prioritize, or you're getting enough time to read all the 8 stations and then begin the prioritization. So in the main exam which happened in the May, so it was not in so much detail that they had explained about the cases. So this is one of the courses of RCOG where they had put up all these cases like this. But in the main exam, hardly 1 or 2 sentences were given. For example, this particular patient, the twins patient is there. And when you ask about the details of this, the examiner was telling, you can ask me more details. I will tell you all this information. And then they tell the blood pressure is 200 by 120. Now, out of suddenly everything where it was just written a single line, now this room becomes a priority, right? So they are modifying the stations in the main exam also. And the examiner was interacting and he was giving out more information as and when you ask. So if you ask for a CTG finding, he will tell you. If you ask for the examination finding, he will tell you. Otherwise, until and unless you ask, they were not telling. So in the exam, apart from the candidate who was performing, even the examiner was speaking certain sentences, and sometimes they were speaking very slow so that the candidates could cover some 5 or 6 stations. They couldn't touch the other 2. In that situation, it becomes important. You have 2 choices: go room wise and then prioritize, or read all of them, pick up whichever you feel the priority most. So it is either the room number 8 or room number 7, whichever is the most priority, 1 or 2 stations. Start your discussion with them. So once you start that discussion, slowly you can discuss again the remaining rooms. You can go them room wise. This is one thing. Before, I used to consider, like, you go room wise and you start, because in my exam, my first case was the gynae ward prioritization list. And the second station which I had was the labor ward prioritization list. So it was like a traumatic kind of a thing that I enter the exam hall, I pick up, I go and stand in front of my station. And the first one is the gynae list. The second one is the labor room list. And then I had to finish all the remaining 12. So the initial 2 station itself, the brain was so drained out that you have to, continuously speak for these particular things. For me, my examiner, they just asked, like, go ahead and prioritize. So they didn't come up with more information. She was like, okay, go next kind of a thing. So I could finish all my rooms and I could finish them in an order. So that was good for me. But here now in the May exam which was conducted, they said that the examiner was giving out the information. There was hardly 1 sentence or 2 sentences which were written in the room. So you cannot really judge whether this particular room is important or not. So what you can do, go through the rooms, pick up 1 or 2 rooms, speak about them, and then start prioritizing room wise. So that becomes more logical, that you are speaking at least 1 or 2 rooms which are displayed as an urgent cases, and then you are going to discuss the other rooms which are either they have some hidden information or something which the examiner will pop up with. So any room that you're going, you should tell the examiner that I will introduce myself to the mother. Then I will do the information gathering by going through the notes and with her permission. So make sure you're saying this, okay? Any special handover, takeover, anything that is there from the previous team regarding this. So her sugar has to be monitored at this particular time. Her vaginal examination is going to be at this particular time. So this you have to make sure that these points are also being mentioned. So any particular special handover is there from the previous team. What are the risk factors now? It could be the negative blood group and then consideration for the anti-D. And Tina, never miss upon Jehovah's Witness. Whenever you say something like a blood group or reservations or cross matching the blood transfusion, the very next sentence should be Jehovah's Witness. So just say that I will do the group and save, and I will rule out the Jehovah's Witness for the patient. Okay. Then the DVT prophylaxis. This should never be missed in any of the stations. So you can generalize and say for all the rooms, I will be checking for the risk factors, the negative blood group, requirement for the anti-D later, Jehovah's Witness, in case if the transfusion is required, assessing the patient for DVT prophylaxis, where the patient will go post-delivery, whether HCU or intensive care, and what about the baby condition, that will be discussed with the neonatologist. So these are the general statements which you can make in the beginning itself. And you say that I will be going through all these points in all the rooms, and then it becomes easier also. Then the main agenda is who is going to do and what they are going to do, when they are going to do, where they are going to do, and how they are going to do. So these points have to be addressed in each and every room that you go. Then what has to be done for the mother, what has to be done for the baby. For example, the baby is not yet delivered. So the baby thing, what we can do is monitor the fetal heart rate. So was she on an intermittent auscultation, or is she on an continuous CTG monitoring? So the baby part is this one. Then whether the babies, if there is any problem with the CTG, are you going ahead with some scalp stimulation kind of a thing, or an FBS may be required. So this is all the baby related. For the mother related, it could be whether she's having adequate contractions or not, any pain relief that she may require, any instrumentation that she may require, cesarean sections. Then what are her concerns regarding this particular time or the mode of delivery, what she has decided for herself. So think about the mother, think about the baby in that particular room. So if we go room wise, so here room number 1, it is a semi-urgent. So we all know that this particular room. So there is Mrs. Owusu is there, and she has delivered at 38 weeks, and she was on epidural. She is A positive. Cesarean section was done at 1 a.m. So it has been 7 hours. She has lost 800 ml of blood. She is an insulin dependent lady, and the baby is in NICU. So we should make sure that how is her condition, what are the vitals, then there is a blood loss over there, then insulin dependence, so what should be the sugar monitoring. Now baby is in the NICU for what reason, and is the baby's sugar also being monitored. So everything has to be looked into. So this becomes a semi-urgent because already she has been delivered, and the situation is not that which requires an urgent attention, and because there is a kind of fluid thing also. So here either a midwife can go, she can go and check for the Mears chart and the vitals, and where is she exactly, so that you need to know whether she is placed in an HT or what, and repeat the full blood count for her because she had 800 ml of loss. Check the urine output for her because she is post-op. Sugar monitoring should be done. The diabetologist should be involved in her care plan. How is the baby doing now? Okay. Okay. So how is the baby doing now in the NICU? That has to be inquired, and her recovery plan has to be cared accordingly. So what will be there? The fluids, the antibiotics, the analgesics, the pain relief for her, the sugar monitoring accordingly. So all these things have to be planned for her recovery, and just ask her how is the bleeding, how is the pain right now. So you're going to inquire regarding these, and has she taken something liquids? And what about the analgesia requirement for her? If she is able to move her limbs, has she taken a walk or something? So all these things have to be asked for her. Room number 2, this is a semi-urgent case. So here, Mrs. Evans, so it is a gravida to abortion 1. She is presenting at 41 weeks. Now, as soon as there is a negative blood group, you should remember that the 2 things. One is avoiding the methogen for her. Second thing is considering the anti-D later. So these 2 things should flash in your mind, and group and save should be there for this particular patient. Now, this patient has been transferred at 4 a.m. in the morning from the home because again, there was a slow progress. And she is asthmatic. So as soon as we get to know that she is asthmatic, we have to avoid the prostaglandin for hers and the NSAID group of drugs. So many drugs we are avoiding in her. So if she undergoes any PPH management, then we cannot offer these things. We have to control it on the misoprostol for her. So this becomes a patient safety point, and you have to group and save this particular blood group for her. So this is a semi-urgent because still she is under evaluation. Now, once she is being transferred, you need to assess what was the reason for transfer, that there was slow progress. Okay, now I have to do a vaginal examination and find out that her assessment, is there any improvement from the transfer notes, or is it the same? And because she has a negative blood group, you are going to comment upon the anti-D that is going to be later, group and save for her, and need for any rupture of the membranes. If the membranes are intact, then you need to rupture the membranes, and then later on, if still the contractions are not adequate, you're going to consider the oxytocin drip for her. So involve your senior consultant over here for the decision making, that what has to be done. Run a CTG right now and see how the baby is doing. So the baby well-being has to be assessed. Rule out CPD in this condition. Why? There is a delay in progress. If there are any scans which are done prior, then you need to make sure that check for the baby weight. It shouldn't be on the higher side. Rule out any things that are required for, the need arises for a cesarean section. That has to be ruled out. Now, this patient may or may not require cesarean. So you're going to just alert the OT staff that one such patient has come from there, and we are going to assess her. And if the need arises, then only we are going to do the cesarean section for her. So you're going to alert the OT staff. You can tell the midwife coordinator to do the same. Inform the consultant about such a situation that one person has been referred like this. Then she has asthma. That has to be, you have to make sure the NSAIDs and the PGF2 alpha are being avoided for her. And the same thing has to be conveyed to the consultant and the anesthetist also. Now going to the room number 3. So we have Primey at 42 weeks again. She is O positive. She has come with a decreased fetal movements. They have done the scan and it confirms that there is an intrauterine death. So this patient is not an urgent case, but this patient requires attention. Attention can be given by your midwife currently, and then you can, once the labor room is being settled, you can say that I apologize for the same because there was a delay in settling the labor room, and then you can go and talk to her and then counsel her regarding this and then discuss what can be done now. Okay, so this will be for the room 3. So it could be the midwife who goes there. She should show the empathy and the particular reasons, like, decreased movements were there. Did she report prior or not? Then all such history that has to be confirmed. See whether the patient had any risk factor which has led to the intrauterine fetal death. Now your job is to debrief her and the family members and then offer the management options. You have to apologize for the delay, that you're going to discuss it a little later, but yes, you're going to review soon. Inform the consultant that such a mother has arrived and we'll discuss all the care plan management with her. So now that she's already 40 weeks, you cannot delay further. So you just say, okay, we can do the expectant management where most of the women, they're going to labor, but your the blood investigations, everything has to be kept in check. So in case if there is any problem, we have to expedite the delivery. Otherwise, most of them by conservative management, they will deliver. So the detailed discussion can be documented later. At this particular point of time, you have to tell that you are going to apologize that there could be a delay. And once the labor room is being stabilized, we'll be coming back and again speaking to her. So you're going to send your midwife to go and convey all these points to her. The room number 4, here she is primary at 28 weeks. She is O negative and antepartum hemorrhage and CTG is normal. We do not exactly know that how much amount she has bled. Correct? They have just written it is an antepartum hemorrhage. So we don't know whether it is a minor bleed. We don't know whether it is a major bleed. So what you're going to do now in this situation, you have to assess her vitals and then just quantify whether the amount of bleed out of proportion, is it only the spotting kind of a thing, or she has significant blood loss which is affecting her vitals. So you need to quantify that blood loss also. Because she's A negative and O negative, and then she had a bleeding episode, she'll be requiring the anti-D also. That has to be done. Now CTG is normal. The baby is assessed and baby is found to be normal. Now you have to see whether this bleeding is an ongoing or not. You have to arrange for a scan immediately to rule out any abruption for her. And you have to see whether if the bleeding is controlled, if it stops, then she has to be observed within that 24 hours. If nothing happens, if everything is fine, CTG is fine, the scan rules out any abruption, or this could be just a placenta previa and that bleeding episode has stopped and there is no bleeding for the 24 hours also. So after observation, you can discharge this patient. But if the bleeding, you really don't know how much is the bleeding and what the examiner will say there. If the bleeding is a major antepartum hemorrhage compromising her vitals and there is an ongoing bleed, then you have to terminate the pregnancy. In that condition, she is 28 weeks. So whether she has received any steroid or no, that you have to see, and whether the magnesium sulfate that has to be started. So all these things have to be discussed with her. We do not give the tocolysis for the fact that we don't know whether this, we have to do the scan first and see whether there's an abruption or what it is, and then only we'll be able to comment on that. So this is a kind of a general statement which is given in that particular room. So it is an urgent case because she's bleeding. So you have to quantify that. Send your ST3 because you must be busy in managing the other case. As she said, it was room number 8. So you can send your emergency over here. Tina, whenever there is a doubt that the mother's condition has to be analyzed or the baby's condition has to be given priority. For example, you had given the priority for the room number 6 also, and you have the priority now for the room number 4 also. So here what you should do, always choose the mother. In that situation, make sure you're shifting your focus to the mother first, because whenever the two situations are there, now room number 4 and 6, both are your priority after the room number 8. So go for room number 4 because the mother's life is going to be in danger. Okay, so send your ST3, let them assess. In the meanwhile, again, your ST1 or the midwife, they can immediately go there, or once you're free with the other room, then immediately you can come there once the situation has been stabilized. So the priority also becomes important here. If you have 2 rooms and there is a mother as a priority, there is a baby as a priority in the other room, always choose the mother's room as your next priority. Okay.
Okay.
So this is an urgent one. Okay.
So this is okay. So this is the urgent one here. You're sending your ST3 to go and evaluate this patient. You're going to assess the amount of bleeding that the patient has, and then they will come and inform you about what the amount of bleeding is there. CTG has to be performed, that is said to be normal. Then offer admission to her, stabilize her condition. Anti-D has to be given, NICU, and availability has to be confirmed because it is 28 weeks. Then steroids, tocolysis, if after ruling out the abruption and there is no ongoing bleed, only then you're going to offer this and allow for the steroids to act. If not, you're not going to give any tocolysis for if she has any abruption. Magnesium sulfate has to be considered for her. Any need for emergency delivery, it has to be assessed, arrange for a scan immediately, inform the OT staff and your consultant and the pediatrician. Because it is less than 28 weeks, then the baby will require level 3 NICU. If there is no availability, you have to deliver and then ship the baby out. So you're considering the mother as the priority here. Room number 5. So this is primary with 41 weeks and she's on the painkiller pethidine. So she does not have the epidural. So here she has a pethidine. Why they have given the pethidine then? Because she may require, now she's fully at 7. So since 1 hour, she's fully. And it is grade 1 meconium and she's primary. For the primary, without epidural, we are going to give 2 full hours of trial. With epidural, we are going to give 3 full hours of trial. So now this patient is not on epidural, so I can give her 2 full hours of trial. Now, because she's on pethidine, whenever I'm going to try any instrumentation or something, she may require the local anesthesia, some blocks. So that has to be kept in mind. Now, grade 1 meconium is there. You have to do the CTG for her. So fully is there. So you need to reassess the patient for her. Any chance of CPDs, everything has to be ruled out. Okay. So these are the points that you're going to think that, okay, what next can I do for her? So this is a semi-urgent. Your midwife is going to go there and do the CTG assessment. Now, pediatrician, if still doubtful, then the pediatrician should be involved. Tell them that this is a grade 1 meconium, so the need for resuscitation could be there. So pediatrician has to be informed beforehand. Then in case the midwife has any doubts or something or instrumentation is required, the ST1 will go and assess whether any instrumentation is required. Is not going to perform, but they are only going to assess whether instrumentation has to be required. Your consultant has to be informed. Now, in case the instrumentation is required, then the consultant's choice of instrument and keeping the mother's choice also they discuss, and they will prefer vacuum over the forceps if the station is favorable for that. And any instrumentation for the lower parts, like for example, it is an outlet or it is a low cavity, that can be performed in your labor room also. The mid cavity should always be taken to the operation theater. Whenever you're taking to the operation theater, it is the written consent. So do remember this. So whenever you're performing anything that in labor room, a verbal consent could be there. Then the consultant, the choice of instrument, everything will be the consultant, and keeping the patient's preference also. This you need to comment about here. OT staff we need to alert, because if anything fails, then you may have to take the patient there. Need for episiotomy, if it is there, you have to give the local anesthesia because she is only on the pethidine and she's not on the epidural over there. So this patient, we may or may not need to expedite the delivery here. And if everything is going fine, the CTG is fine, and grade 1 meconium, we can still give the trial. So constant CTG monitoring for this particular patient has to be done. Okay. This is how you will deal with the room number 5. Room number 6, she is primary at 37 weeks. She's on epidural. She's O negative. As soon as O negative, I will think about the anti-D, avoid methogen, and group LC. Now the patient is having a CTG where the fetal heart rate is more. It is more than 160 there. There are late decelerations. Now the patient was done for the induction of labor for the IUGR. So this is all the risk factors that the baby has here. So what will I do? So I will go like it's a kind of urgent. So I need to assess this or the ST3. So whoever is free, they will go and assess this one. Fetal well-being has to be confirmed. So if baby is not responding to anything like scalp stimulation, go stepwise, then you need to do the fetus blood sampling availability. You need to confirm first and then send the FPS. Do the cervical assessment and see if anything is required, like you need to deliver the patient immediately. So rule out all the imminent delivery indications. And because the patient is negative, again, group and save, anti-D, these things are a must, and avoid the methogen for her. Pediatrician has to be informed because there is the pathological CTG is showing there. So you have to involve the pediatrician. Now the patient is on epidural. You have to inform the theater if required, and then consultant also, that you may require to deliver this patient urgently. Okay. Next one is your para-5 leaving 5. As soon as you understand that this is a para-5 leaving 5, she's a grand multipara, there is a chance that you can anticipate a PPH. So this patient is on pethidine again, B positive, she's delivered at 7 AM. So what things am I going to look into this particular patient who has already delivered? Because she is grand multipara, there could be a chance of PPH. So examination, it can be done by the midwife. She'll go and see that how is the patient doing. Then is there any ongoing bleed? Now any delivered patient should pass urine. So I just ask whether the patient has passed urine. Has she taken something, by mouth? And what about the baby? Has she breastfed the baby? Where is the baby currently? That has to be asked. Okay, it's been 1 hour now. So how is the recovery part? Everything going on. So if she has not breastfed the baby, then encourage her. So mother is taken care, baby is taken care. Mother, important thing is post delivery, they have to void the urine. So make sure that is there. ongoing bleed like PPH, that shouldn't be there. So Pethidine is there, so make sure she's getting the adequate pain relief also. So what you're going to say, this is going to be a kind of routine. So send your midwife, do the assessment for the bleeding. Routine post-op care should be explained to her. She should have passed urine, breastfeeding has to be encouraged. Then baby, what the condition of the baby is, and then shift the patient accordingly, whether if she's a low risk, she'll go into the routine care. If any high risk factors are there, then she has to be shifted to the HDU or ICU. This you need to comment about the room number 7. Now room number 8, she is gravida 2, previous one living, she's 38 weeks. Now she's on epidural, O positive. She was undergoing a VBAC trial and the CTG was showing the early deceleration, fully dilated since 5 minutes, and suddenly she has felt the pain. There is hematuria. So all these points are showing you that it is a rupture uterus. The first thing that you're going to do is, you can say that, whenever I'm sending a midwife or my ST3 or somebody, I will ask them, once their task is done, they will be joining me back in the subsequent rooms. So in that way, it's a kind of actual labor room scenario. So each person, they are performing their task and they're coming back and accompanying me in this particular station. So this is an urgent station. It requires your immediate attention. The first thing is calling for help. So who all the team members are free, they're going to join you immediately. You're going to pull the emergency buzzer. That is how you're going to call them and announce them. You have to announce that this particular case, it looks like a rupture uterus. So you have to stabilize her condition and do the next intervention immediately. So how you're going to stabilize her, you make sure all the vitals are fine. You can take the 2 wide bore IV cannulas for her, take out the group and save sample for her, then explain her that more people will be coming here because you're thinking about a life-threatening event that could have happened right now. We fear that there could be a rupture uterus. So you're going to explain, debrief the mother and debrief her relatives also that she'll require an immediate cesarean section because these things are there. You're going to alert your OT staff. You tell your midwife coordinator, she will alert the OT staff, she'll coordinate with the blood bank, and then they will inform the OT theatre and the consultant. If they are free from the previous case and other things, immediately you should tell them that such a case has come and we need to shift the patient urgently. Okay, so this is how you're going to manage as in a real labor room scenario, that okay, some untoward incidents has happened and immediately everybody rushes there to help you out. So the previous people, whomever I have assigned the task, once their task is done, they're going to join me back in your subsequent rooms as and when they're going. So all those people will come and help you out with this emergency room. So this is immediately, it should take an attention, call for help, pull the buzzer and tell that it could be a possibility of rupture uterus. Then I myself, I'm going to attend this. I'm going to inform the anesthetist, the consultant, pediatrician, OT staff, hematologist for all the group and save. The blood group save sample should be sent. Consent has to be taken that, you're shifting the patient to the operation theatre. And post-operatively, she'll be shifted to the recovery as in high dependency unit or the ICU care. You're going to debrief her regarding all the situation once everything has been settled and follow all the clinical governance points, a thorough documentation, then all the duty of candor for her because, at least like some untoward event has happened. So you apologize for that and whatever things are there, going to be open and honest regarding the situation and how is it being handled and see how the baby is going to perform. Because it could be like, baby becomes hypoxic. So the post delivery, the baby, the pediatrician has to be kept in loop for her care plan management. How in 2 rooms I will go? You have to tell that I am going to attend the roommate immediately, dear. And afterwards, I'm sending my ST3 to this particular room, okay, where this was urgent. And once things are stabilized, I am going to, once things are stabilized, I am shifting that patient to the operation theatre where my consultant is there. Then I'll get back to the room number 6. So you don't have to, comment that they want to know who is going to attend. They are not telling you like you will be present in 2 particular rooms at the same time, right? So they are asking you which room will you like, prefer, and then you cannot be present in 2 rooms at a time. You have to stabilize your most urgent room first. Send her, shift her to the operation theatre. That is what we do in the labor room, right? We tell your consultant, okay, be there, I'm shifting this patient there. And then immediately I go and see the next patient. This is how we do in our labor room. So you cannot be present in 2 rooms, but you can tell that this is my priority. Okay, am I clear, Soni? So in 2 rooms, you're not going, dear, simultaneously. Okay, dear, thank you. So you're not going in 2 rooms simultaneously, but you're telling that this room is a priority which will require, like, my presence. So I'm going to stabilize this particular station, this room, and I'm going to come back to this. In the meanwhile, whoever is free, they are all helping me out with managing my urgent room, right? Thank you, dear. So this is how, like, the labor room has to be prioritized. See, there are lots of opinion, and labor room station is a must, because it comes in every exam now. Since 2019, it has been happening that all the days they were labor room stations. And here also in May, all the 8 days they had the labor room stations. And most of the candidates, they could not complete the labor room station. For the fact that the information given was less, they had to extract so many things from the examiner. So most of them could not complete all the rooms. Few of them did, but the information which they gave may or may not be that much adequate, which the examiner would have expected. So if they have met the expectation and they have covered all those points and they have been ticked for all those points in that particular 9 minutes or 10 minutes, then that is fine. But let me tell you that labor room station is going to be coming in your upcoming exams, and it will be there for every day for the performance. So do not compromise your 13 stations because of this one labor room station. This is what I want to tell all of you. So in case if you're, just be very much neutral for this particular station in your exam. If it goes well, well and good, fine. If it doesn't go well, please do not carry the performance to your next station and spoil your next subsequent stations. So this is what I feel. Do practice all the labor room modules. There is a folder which has the compilations of all the labor modules from different books. So you need to practice them. Make sure that scenarios are done and you're practicing everything within like an 8 to 9 minutes, because there again examiner will be taking 1 or 2 minutes of yours by explaining the situation, or probably more than that also. So keep your practice going on and keep the plan that yes, I'm going to see which all the rooms are. I'm going to pick 2 important rooms. I am going to talk about those 2 important rooms, and then I'm going to go room wise and then explain the thing so that I do not miss any particular room. And in the end, if I'm getting the time, I'm going to summarize that these points are going to be my priority. Task allocation, Madhu, whenever it is you feel that it requires urgent attention, definitely you're going there. There are different
Hello?
things.
Hello?
Yes.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Actually, problem is not between like urgent cases, because a consultant and a myself, those are not in problem. And problem becomes this allocating this midwives and the ST1, ST2, those becomes problems.
So there is one beautiful chart which is there. I'll be sharing it in the group. So who does what kind of a task? The ST1 does what kind of a task? Then the ST2, ST3, what they are expected, to learn by the end of their the training period. So that is there. But as general, what you can say is, whenever the patient is stable, please send your midwife. Okay, in the rooms when you're assessing that she has delivered and then she's stable, or she doesn't require immediate attention from you or the ST3 levels and all. So please send your midwife. They are trained, they are experts in doing the PV assessments, and they are trained in speaking to and showing empathy kind in an IUFT station, then post delivery care. So they are all trained in such situations. So please send your midwife to do the PV assessment also. Whenever in doubt that the patient may require some instrumentation or something, if your ST1 is free, they are not going to perform. Okay, they are going to assess and tell you. They can, there is a list of all the trainees which the task they are supposed to do and not. So the RCOG has that curriculum kind of thing. They have to pass that OSATs kind of a thing there, and then only they'll be able to allow do these things. So what you do is, all the low risk things, send your midwife. Any PV assessment, send your midwife. Anything further, like for example, here the fetal blood sampling was required. There you have to send your ST1. Okay, ST1, ST2, whoever they are there, please send them. The next level of urgency where the baby is involved, please send ST3. The level of urgency where mother is involved, please do the task yourself. This is how, like, in a simple thing you can think about, wherever the mother's life in danger, you are going to go as an ST5. Whenever the baby's life is in danger, kind of a thing, please send ST3 there. And the subsequent lower, where any particular like FBS is a kind of investigation that you want to offer, where again the assessments has to be done, the midwife is in doubt, or you feel the station anything in need for instrumentation, send the lower levels. Whenever the situation is calm, please send the midwife. Whenever repeat PV examination is there, send your midwife. Stabilization of a patient, send your midwife. In the sense, like, she is post-delivered and she just requires, how she's doing and a Meows chart kind of a thing. There is no ongoing bleed. So she is already stable. Send your midwife to go and check and then come and inform things back to you. So whoever in the room is going, they're going to performing their task, and they're going and coming back and reporting to you that what things have been done, they have done. They are accompanying you in the next room. This is how we usually roam around in the labor room also. So whoever finishes off their task, they're coming and joining us back. Okay. So the mother's danger, anything is there, please yourself give the priority and go and attend the room. And the next level, the baby's life is in danger, please send the ST3 and subsequently. So am I clear with this particular point, dear?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay. So only there are a lot of things, dears. The chart I will share who can do what, and only when they are signed off their OSATs, only then they'll be performing. Otherwise, they are not allowed to perform any particular task. Okay.
And appellation will go like some suppose induction we have to do later. Doctor like ST will go or midwife, because some people have written
Midwife can do induction. Midwife can do induction. There shouldn't be a problem, right? So all these things will be debriefed to them before itself. So here the exam station is that you have to prioritize your urgent room. You're not wasting your time on an induction of labor. If there is any doubt that the midwife has, then she'll come and inform the next levels, right? So anything which requires a formal attention, send your midwife. Okay. Do not take much stress of the labor room prioritization. This is what I want to tell you. This is a very important station. I do agree. It will definitely come in exam. I do agree. But at the same time, do not compromise your 13 important stations if anything happens to this labor wards, the prioritization station. Okay. So this is there. If you perform well and good. If you do not perform, just you need to dust it off and just go ahead with the next station with, the clear mind. Do not carry anything forward, because for me it was like the two prioritization, as I said, it was like immediately, like I went inside and the gynae prioritization is there, then I went ahead, then there's a labor ward prioritization, so they were in continuity. My exam began like that. But yes, I was in fresh mind and I made sure that okay, I have to perform. I can't, I was thinking I was lucky that this was not my last station, that I would have been exhausted and then I'm performing this. I felt like okay, let me finish all these things with my good mind, but at the same time I am not going to carry this thing for the next one. The next one was a Down syndrome patient who was sitting there and she wanted a counseling for that. So I completely left that labor room station then and there, and I shifted to the next the task performance. So labor room prioritization is going to be there. So what you people have to do is practice speaking all these points and how we are going to manage that particular room. Assigning the task and all, do not worry much, because they want you to prioritize the station first. So recognizing that this station is an urgent, that is very important. So the point where, they had given a single sentence, as I said, that the blood pressure was 200 by 120. So that was not written in the labor ward prioritization list, which was there, the PDF which was put up in the exam. So it was not written there. The moment you ask, like, can I know more details? Then they said, and suddenly you have to tell that this is an urgent room. I need to focus more on this particular point. There could be an ongoing PPH also. There could be this station also. So 3-4 stations simultaneously they'll give you all the rooms you need to prioritize. So they want you that you are not present everywhere, but they want you to know that yes, this is urgent and this is supposed to be done by an ST5. This is what they are looking for. And these are the patient safety points. You can't tell the midwife to go and attend a ruptured uterus and you are going and doing the counseling for a stillbirth. That is a clear fail station, right? So in that way, they are looking in for that who is going to perform what task and how they're going to prioritize and recognize that this is an urgent station. So honestly speaking, just go with a cool mind and make sure you are prioritizing the labor rooms as the first 2 points you're going to pick up first, the first 2 priority rooms. Speak about those 2 priority rooms and then start room wise. And then perform whether it is an urgent, semi-urgent or a routine. And whenever the mother is at risk, please tell I am going to do these things. Whenever the baby is at risk and you're managing some other case over there, send your ST3 over there. And subsequently for the routine things and all other lower ones. Okay. So just follow this simple template and then make sure you're not missing on any patient safety points. Like as I discussed all these points over there, so you're not missing on any of these. So negative blood group, all the risk factors, the anti-D, Jehovah's, the DVT prophylaxis, the intensive care, drug allergies, where the baby is going to be shifted. So all these points have to be discussed. So do not miss on these points, okay? Whenever the pediatrician, like 28 weeker is there, availability of NICU, that is really important. Otherwise, you may have to shift the patient or do the cesarean and then shift the baby out. So these options will be there. Okay, so make sure you're going like that. And labor room is a never-ending one, so do not worry on that. So it will keep on practicing on these. What about the second consultant? Can we call in this case? Yes, in case if your on-call consultant is with busy, then you have to involve the second consultant, and the midwife coordinator will be doing all these things. She's going to coordinate and inform, and you can also, if you're free there, then just tell that I have to involve my second consultant. And sometimes they say that he's busy, he's stuck up or like that, so you have to involve the next consultant there. Okay, so if they give the scenario, you need to comment like that.
Will midwife coordinator
Okay,
will go to any room or he will be just coordinating?
They'll be coordinating. The basic job will be coordinating. All the other midwives and all, they'll be there. So they'll be there with you in that particular room and coordinating the concerned people. For example, she wants the OT theaters to be informed, right? So you're there in that room stabilizing the patient. She will inform the OT theater staff and she will inform the your consultant also. So their basic job is to coordinate. So it's not like, like they're completely showing their absence over there. They'll be involved in that, but the basic thing is to coordinate. And for example, they may give you a situation where you're there in the labor room and something comes in the accident and emergency, and you have to leave that place and go and see that the patient in the accident and emergency. In that situation, you have to inform your labor ward coordinator that I'm going to such an accident emergency. So if anything is there, this is the contact number, then you need to inform me about this. I'll just go see that patient and get back to you. So in the meanwhile, they'll coordinate other things over there. So their basic job is to coordinate. Okay, dears. So labor room, as I said, keep practicing all the important practice book labor ward stations, and as and when required, make sure you list out all the safety points and make sure you're using all those safety points in your labor room stations also. So there will be a lot of queries, everything. So will be any doubts, anything that you have, you can just put it up. Then we have Dr. Rupali also, who is working in the NHS system. Any small queries. For example, pulling the buzzer, pushing the buzzer. So again, there will be a buzzer which they usually pull like that. So very small queries, you don't have to bother much about. But if anything is there, just let me know. Then we can confirm with the things that how exactly things are happening. This is what the scenarios all the NHS people have explained, that it goes in this way. So make sure your practice is going on well. It was lovely having all of you in this scenario. Put the
Hello?
link to your Telegram. Yes, dear. I'll be pasting the link, dear. Yes.
Hello, I'll just ask you one last question. Thing is, suppose usually the questions comes like that consultant is on the way or he is busy, stuck up somewhere. So in those cases, suppose two important cases, that can we just inform him like we are doing this? Like he is over phone, so can we just inform him? And
You
by the
have to
time he'll
inform.
come, he'll see.
Yes, yes, you have to inform. The S bar that I told at the beginning, you have to inform. That is the thing where you communicate. You tell the situation, you tell the background risk factors, what the patient has, and what assessment you have done. For example, the situation is she was in labor and she was a previous LSCs. This is a risk factor over there. And the assessment you have done, it seems like a rupture uterus. And what is your recommendation? She requires a Cat 1 cesarean section. This is your S bar that you're communicating with your consultant. So he may be over the phone, he may be in the operation theater. So you need to communicate. You should tell your excuse me, examiner. Excuse me. You should tell your examiner that I am going to communicate in the form of S bar and tell him what the situation background and my assessment and the recommendations are, and I'm going to discuss with him. Okay. So be it phone, be it in any other room, be it in the operation theater, your communication always remains in the form of an S bar. So that is what I had put it in the first slide itself, dear. So you have to always inform over the phone, anything you need to communicate. Okay, dears. So lovely having you all. Hope you'll conduct more such sessions in the future. Sure, dear. Sure, definitely. Nice session. Thank you. Yes.
Excuse me, can I ask a simple question? One simple question.
Yes, dear.
As you mentioned that case 4, it is urgent case because she's 28 weeks and 8 years, but CTG is normal. So as it is CTG normal, at this moment, can we tell that it is semi-urgent and senior midwife can see this patient and continuous monitoring the CTG and also vital signs, and ST1 can send for urgent scan. If there is any concern, then he can inform us or midwife can inform us. But it may turn to urgent if there is ongoing bleeding, not now.
So whenever in doubt, always send your ST3. Because you don't know, they have just given your APH. They have not quantified. So it is always better to send your ST3 and then let them assess. And then if you get to know that, everything is settled, then the midwife can take over and then you will be doing your remaining things, task. So the very purpose that when such a situation is given where the quantification is not there, you have to follow the guideline. So according to the blood loss, or how much he had and whether it is stabilized or not, then you have to do. So whenever in doubt, please send your ST3 and make sure this is not an abruption. There is no ongoing bleed. And once everything is settled, then your midwife will be taking care. So you can actually say these things in front of your examiner. These are the real life situation. My ST3 will go and assess, and if the patient is stable, the midwife will look after. The ST3 will come and join me in the next task.
Yeah.
So this
but
is what we are going to do.
CTG is normal, but if there is other emergency case, so we cannot drill all patients together. So we can come back later on. We can come back later on if there is in case any emergency arises. But there is a, if there is a 2-3 patient urgent, so we at least we can.
One you will be doing. Yes, one you will be doing, one send the ST3. At least two rooms have to be stabilized. In the meanwhile, where an ST1 and the anesthetist registrar, they can take over the fluid management. So such a situation where, the hemorrhage is happening. So immediately your anesthetic registrar will secure the lines and start with the fluid management. So use your team efficiently. Think about wherever there is a fluid problem, please send your anesthetic registrar for the help also. And where it requires a rupture kind, where it requires, the immediate, the mother is collapsed or something, your PPH is there and mother is not responding, definitely you have to be there. And inform your consultant that immediately, as soon as possible, you please come. This is, treat it as a real life scenario and then deal with the station. So that is going to be very smooth in that way. Okay, you cannot be omnipresent, like everywhere you're not there in all the 8 rooms. So do not make that mistake, like I am going to do this, I am going to do this. No, I will ask my midwife to do this. So always say like that. Never in all the rooms say that I am going to do this. You
No,
always
no.
say midwife, that I will ask midwife to do this and come back and report to me that what this task has been done and how is the patient. So always say that I will ask them to do, they will do it, and they'll come back and report it to me.
Yeah, that
Okay, it should
that's
go in
why.
that way. Yeah.
So this case, it cannot be
Um,
like that. Senior midwife or ST1.
Yes, see, whenever in doubt, if you feel that patient requires urgent attention and still you're at the level of station 4, room number 4 or 5, and your ST3 is there available, please send the ST3. Let them stabilize and come back. And if you feel that the
Yeah.
next room is there, then tell, okay, once the patient is stabilized, my ST3 will come here. So you cannot be present everywhere, dear.
Okay.
So you should make
Okay,
sure
thanks.
you use your people, your team efficiently. That's why in the beginning I say, like, with my efficient team of doctors and my efficient team, I hereby begin my labor ward prioritization, keep the patient safety in mind, and aiming for a healthy mother and baby outcome. These words are going to impress your examiner. Do not prolong much, but yes, make the best use of this. Tell that my efficient team is there and we all are going to manage.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Soumya, yeah, thank you, dear. Dr. Soumya, it is Raise Academy, dear. So I'll be sharing the link again. So Raise Academy, it is Raise MRCOG Part 3. That is the group. So you can just drop in a message. I will share the link also. Show the slides with the station. Thank you. This is the slide. This is actually a collection from the RCOG course that they had run. This is there in the compilation, dears. Is the next slide. So it was lovely having you all in such a good number. Thank you all so much, and hope things are quite clear with the labor ward. So together, all of us, with all the mentors, we are going to help you to people to clear this exam and get the success. And this is my next course, which we are announcing for the November batch. This will begin in the August. Again, Dr. Geetika, Dr. Siddesh, and me will be taking this. It's an extended course and it begins from the August. It will be duration for the 3 months. We take only 6 active participants for the fact that I have to concentrate on lot. So I aim at targeting only 6 active participants and training them adequately. So a kind of a small group is formed and all those 6 have to present every week. They have to perform. In the Telegram group, we give them the voice task. So as and when they submit their voice task, they'll get the feedback and the next voice task will be assigned. So these are the practice books which we are doing. And the recalls we'll be solving in the live sessions. The recall templates are being made. They are put up in the folders in the website. So all you need to do is just click on them, open the templates and read them. So everything is prepared. I think we are doing maximum, like what all things possible for you people to, just get all the materials ready. All you have to do is practice. So practice using all these beautiful sentences to impress your examiner, and practice using all the patient safety points, and the way you communicate with your patient, that should be really good. So this can come only by practice, and the fluency is going to save time for you all. You're going to cover maximum points in the short limit of time. So make sure you're targeting all these things. So the link of this the course will be shared with you all again. And happy studying. It was lovely having all of you from the team Raise Academy. Good night, take care, and have a good time, dears. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye, take care. Good night. Thank you, dears.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, dears. Thank you so much. Bye bye, take care.